I told him I thought his boss was more attractive as a joke, but he took it to heart, and then, welcome to my channel. Support us by subscribing. Your subscription helps us grow and create more exciting content like this. Now, let's dive into today's story. I thought I was being playful when I told him his boss was very attractive, but I didn't realize it was the first crack in the foundation of everything we built and the door I opened to ruin my marriage. So, Reddit community, please hear me out and give me your advice on what I should do next. I really need my marriage to work again. Please, no biased advice or hate comments. We are all human, and none of us is perfect. I'm losing my mind each passing day and struggling to accept the reality of my situation. Let me tell you everything that happened. My name is Anna, and my husband's name is Ken. We dated for 4 years before we got married 5 years ago. I had 4 good years to choose between him and someone else, but I wanted him and only him. After our wedding, we relocated to a new house, and a year later, I stopped working to recover from a miscarriage. My last job as a banker was tedious, and Ken and I decided I'd take a break. I became comfortable staying home, trying out new recipes, and being there for him. Ken supported this. He even created a home office and tried to leave work early so he could spend time with me. He felt guilty about the miscarriage, blaming himself for not noticing how much my job stressed me. Ken was amazing. He did everything to make me happy and constantly reminded me that my happiness was his happiness. He even declined extra shifts to be home more. My friends envied our marriage. I loved how they wished their relationships were like ours. Things seemed perfect when we had our boys, Jamie and Ethan. Ken became an amazing father. He built pillow forts, coached soccer games, and read bedtime stories in the most animated voices. But when Ken learned about a promotion opportunity at work, he started putting in extra effort. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, something that would provide for our growing family. I was proud of him and boasted to my friends about his hard work. At first, I didn't mind the long hours he spent preparing for the promotion. I understood the stakes. He reassured me it was temporary, and I believed him. Then he got the promotion, and things seemed great. Ken's boss, Michael, took a liking to him, and their friendship grew. I'd never met Michael, but heard a lot about him. Ken said he was a great boss and friend. Another promotion came up, and Ken started working even harder. I supported him because I thought it would mean he'd eventually have more time for us. But instead of improving, things got worse. Ken became a ghost in our home. The man who used to play hide and seek with our boys was now too tired to even sit through dinner. Weekends were no longer family time, but they were just extensions of his work week. He was leading a major project and constantly stressed. I told myself it was temporary, but deep down, I missed him. We all did. It wasn't just his absence that hurt. It was the growing sense that he was slipping away from us. I noticed he avoided eye contact when I asked about his day. He'd take late-night phone calls in hushed voices and stiffen whenever I entered his home office unexpectedly. My mind wandered to dangerous territory. Was it just work, or was there something more? I couldn't keep these thoughts to myself, so I confided in my friend Laura. She's been my rock for years, the kind of person who tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Laura told me not to jump to conclusions, but to trust my instincts. If something felt off, I needed to figure it out for myself. Maybe follow Ken one day to see what he was really up to. The idea made me uneasy, but Laura had a point. Years ago, I'd felt a similar distance between us. Back then, it was just work. When the truth came out, I felt terrible for doubting him. But this time felt different. I couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that there was a skeleton in the cupboard. Then there was Michael. I first met him at a company event after Ken's first promotion. Michael was charismatic, a man who could command a room. When he approached me, he complimented my dress and joked about how Ken must be too busy to notice how beautiful I looked. I laughed, flattered but dismissive. Later, I told Ken about it, expecting him to laugh too. Instead, he was cold. He said Michael was like that to everyone and warned me not to read too much into it. His reaction annoyed me because I hadn't thought much of Michael's compliment. It led to a misunderstanding that lasted days before we sorted it out. I assured Ken that I only had eyes for him, and he promised to make more time for us. For a while, things seemed back on track. One evening, Ken left for work late at night. Feeling lonely and suspicious, I decided to follow him. I ended up outside his office building, where he was exactly where he said he'd be. Relief washed over me, but so did guilt. He was working hard for our family. Why wasn't that enough for me? But the loneliness remained. Then came the charity gala, where Michael's charm found its way back into my life. Ken had insisted I attend, even though he'd be busy working all evening. By the end of the night, Michael offered me a ride home, saying he was heading my way. I hesitated, remembering the tension his compliments had caused before. But Ken had given me the green light to leave, so I reluctantly agreed. The ride started innocently enough. Michael and I made small talk about the event, his friendship with Ken, and Ken's dedication to work. Then his tone shifted. He told me Ken was lucky to have someone as understanding as me, especially since being married to a workaholic couldn't be easy. His words struck a nerve. For months, I'd been trying to ignore the void Ken's absence left in my life. Now, someone else had noticed it too. In a moment of weakness, I joked, "Maybe I should have married someone like you instead." Michael laughed, but the words hung in the air. I regretted saying them immediately. I'd meant it as a joke, but it felt too real, too raw. When I got home, I didn't mention the ride or the conversation to Ken. A few weeks later, during a casual dinner conversation, I made another joke about Michael. I said something like, "Your boss is quite attractive. No wonder everyone listens to him." I meant it as a playful comment, but Ken didn't take it that way. His expression darkened, and he became distant. I tried to brush it off, but I knew I'd struck a nerve. Ken started spending even more time at work. When he was home, he barely spoke to me. The distance between us grew until it felt insurmountable. One night, during an argument, he brought up my comments about Michael. He accused me of being disrespectful and undermining his efforts to provide for our family. I tried to explain that I never meant to hurt him, but he wouldn't listen. He said he felt like he wasn't enough for me anymore. Now, I'm at a loss. I never intended for things to get this bad. I love Ken, and I want our marriage to work, but I don't know how to fix this. I've apologized countless times, but the damage seems done. He's still distant, and I'm terrified that I've ruined everything. Reddit, please help. How do I save my marriage? Memories ambush me as I sink onto the couch. Last month's canceled weekend trip, had he planned something special? Valentine's Day brunch with my friends instead of the dinner reservation he mentioned. Christmas Eve at my office party, while his parents waited at their house. Hey, this is Tom. The cream-colored envelope sits on my kitchen counter, Laura's looping handwriting dancing across the front. Inside, Her birthday invitation promises an evening at her place. Dinner, wine, celebration. After 2 years together, these quiet moments have become our tradition, a chance to reconnect amid our busy lives. Her handwriting curves across the paper like waves, each stroke reminding me of lazy Sunday mornings when we trace patterns on each other's skin. I call her immediately. My phone screen still bears the background photo from our beach trip last summer. I'd love our usual quiet celebration, I say. Like last year in the garden, remember? When we counted shooting stars until midnight. Of course, she purrs through the phone. I want to make it special for you. You deserve everything. My heart soars at her words. We've built so many memories this way. Birthdays spent sharing whispered dreams and gentle touches. The evening air filled with possibilities and promises. The small wrapped box in my jacket pocket holds a silver pendant, a delicate compass rose matching the constellation map she gave me on our first anniversary. A reminder of all the places we still want to explore together, all the adventures we've planned in those quiet moments between kisses. The door swings open before I can knock. Laura beams at me, radiant in a sparkly top that catches the light like broken glass, already holding a glass of wine. Surprise, she squeals, pulling me into a hug that smells of perfume and alcohol. Behind her, at least 20 people pack her small living room, bodies pressing against each other in a space meant for intimate conversations. What happened to our plans? My voice cracks beneath the weight of disappointment. The pendant in my pocket feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Its presence, a reminder of everything this evening, was supposed to be the careful scheduling of our favorite takeout, the playlist I'd created of songs from our first dates, the speech I'd practiced about our future. All of it evaporates into the smoky air. I thought you needed something different this year. Everyone's here to celebrate you, she says. But they're not here for me. As I wade through the crowd like a swimmer fighting the tide, I recognize face after face. Laura's coworkers, her gym friends, her book club. 2 years together, and she's surrounded me with people who barely know my name, let alone my dreams, fears, or the way I take my coffee. Strangers smile and wish me happy birthday before immediately turning back to their conversations, their words floating away like autumn leaves. The air grows thick with cigarette smoke and competing perfumes, nothing like the jasmine candles Laura usually lights for our date nights. Laura bounces between groups with the energy of a hummingbird, topping off drinks and sharing inside jokes. I try catching her eye, hoping to find some recognition of our usual connection, but she's always moving, always surrounded. When she does pause near me, her attention scatters like mercury across a tabletop. Are you having fun? She chirps, but rushes off before I can answer. This isn't the woman who spent last year's birthday stargazing with me on her balcony, pointing out constellations until sunrise, her voice soft with wonder and possibility. In the kitchen, I watch her throw her head back, laughing at her friend Megan's story. It's the kind of unguarded joy we used to share over morning coffee or late-night movies, when the world narrowed down to just us two. My fingers trace the outline of the pendant box, memorizing its edges like I once memorized the curves of Laura's smile. I remember our phone call, wondering if I'd somehow imagined the intimacy in her voice. Had she even heard me? Or had 2 years of quiet celebrations suddenly become too mundane for her, like a favorite song played too many times? Hey, birthday boy, shot time. Someone thrusts a glass of amber liquid toward me, the smell burning my nostrils. I shake my head and retreat toward Laura's balcony, our balcony, where we've shared so many private moments. Through the window, I see Laura in her element, dancing and glowing among her friends like a flame drawing moths. She hasn't noticed my absence, hasn't sought me out in the crowd. The Laura I know, the one who finishes my sentences and brings me coffee in bed, seems to have vanished beneath this glittering, party-hosting stranger. I sink into the single metal chair where we usually cuddle during sunset, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears. The pendant box catches the streetlights as I turn it over and over, its velvet surface smooth against my calloused fingers. Inside, the compass rose points steadily north, more certain of its direction than I am of ours. The silver gleams with promises I'm no longer sure we can keep. Music and laughter continue to pulse through the glass behind me, but out here, I might as well be celebrating alone. The night air bites at my skin, and I lean back, staring at the stars above. They're scattered across the sky, indifferent to my feelings, distant and unreachable. I think about all the nights Laura and I spent looking up together, her hand warm in mine as we shared our dreams. A house by the sea, a dog, a lifetime of adventures. But now, those dreams feel as distant as the stars themselves. I think back to the first birthday we spent together. It was just the two of us. She'd surprised me with a homemade dinner, a simple but heartfelt gesture that had meant the world to me. We'd laughed, talked, and shared stories late into the night. That night, I'd realized how deeply I cared for her, how much I wanted her to be a part of my life. Tonight, that intimacy feels like a distant memory. The door to the balcony creaks open, and I look up to see Laura stepping out. Her smile falters when she sees my expression. "Hey," she says softly, her voice uncertain. "Why are you out here all alone?" I take a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "I needed some air," I reply, my voice even. She steps closer, her arms wrapping around herself against the chill. "Are you okay? You've been so quiet tonight." I meet her gaze, searching for the Laura I know. I thought we had plans. Just the two of us. Like always. Her eyes widen slightly, and she looks away. I just wanted to do something special. Something different. You deserve to be celebrated. Special doesn't mean surrounded by strangers, I say, my voice cracking. It means being with you. Sharing a moment that's just ours. Her face falls, and for a moment, I think she understands. But then she shakes her head, frustration flickering in her eyes. "I thought you'd be happy. I worked so hard to put this together. Did you do it for me or for them?" I ask quietly. The question hangs in the air between us, heavy and uncomfortable. She doesn't answer. "I'm sorry," she says finally, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to ruin your night." I shake my head, the weight of the evening pressing down on me. "You didn't ruin it. It's just not what I expected." She nods, and for a moment, we stand there in silence, the noise from the party muffled behind the glass. I pull the pendant box from my pocket and hold it out to her. "I got this for you," I say, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. Her eyes widen as she takes the box, her fingers trembling slightly. She opens it, and her breath catches when she sees the pendant. "It's beautiful," she whispers, tears glistening in her eyes. "It's a compass rose," I explain, "a reminder of all the places we want to go. Together." She looks up at me, her eyes searching mine. "I'm sorry," she says again, her voice breaking. "I didn't realize how much this night meant to you." It's not just about the night, I say, my voice soft. It's about us, about what we've built together. I don't want to lose that. Her tears spill over, and she steps closer, wrapping her arms around me. You won't, she says, her voice muffled against my chest. I promise. We stand there for a long time, holding each other as the city lights twinkle around us. The party continues inside, but out here, it's just the two of us. And for the first time that night, I feel like we're on the same page again. As the night winds down, Laura and I sit together on the balcony, sharing quiet conversation and stolen kisses. The stars above seem a little brighter, the air a little warmer. And though the evening didn't go as planned, I'm reminded of why I fell in love with her in the first place. Because even when things don't go perfectly, we find our way back to each other. Just like the compass rose, always pointing north. I don't know why I said that. Maybe it was because I wasn't happy hearing that Michael, the man I thought would never leave my side, was leaving town and going to stay with my husband, who had stopped caring or even noticing me anymore. But until I said it, I didn't realize what I was doing. I said it as a joke, knowing deep down that no matter how I felt, I still wanted to stay married to Ken. However, I could see my husband's face change. He didn't laugh. He just went quiet for a moment. Then, my phone buzzed next to him. Without hesitation, he picked it up. His face shifted from bitter to sour as he looked at the screen. He turned the phone toward me and asked me to explain what the text meant. It was a message from Michael. Ken stared at me in disbelief, his eyes filled with anger. I was terrified. The grip he had on the phone was so strong, I thought he might break it. As Ken mentioned, Michael was leaving the city to stay with his family because he had finished setting up his personal business ventures. The message on the screen was a farewell text, thanking me for the time we had spent together. For a moment, I considered making up the perfect lie to cover up the text, but Ken was already demanding the truth with so much intensity that I couldn't lie. I broke down in tears and confessed everything that happened between me and Michael. I tried to explain how lonely I had felt, how invisible I had become for so long, but Ken wouldn't listen. Michael and I didn't do anything deep. It was a mistake, a one-time thing, and we stopped because I loved Ken. No matter how distant he was, I loved our marriage, our kids, and I didn't want anything to go wrong. But Ken didn't listen. Yes, I was consumed with guilt and regret. I begged him to hear me out, to let me explain. I told him that I never meant for things to get that far, and that I had been understanding with him, hoping he would try to understand me as well. But he didn't. He said he couldn't trust me anymore, that the damage was done, and that I had to leave. He gave me a few days to pack my things and figure out where to go. Then, he left the house for a few days because he couldn't stand to be around me. The thought of leaving my boys and disrupting their lives was unbearable. I pleaded with Ken, begging him to let us fix things, to salvage what was left for the sake of our family, but he didn't want to fix anything. He told me there was no going back from what I had done, and that for me to have a pleasurable moment with Michael and still say he was more attractive meant I wanted out of our marriage and didn't love him anymore. That hurt him badly. He said I had betrayed not only him, but also the boys, who were the only reason he worked so hard for our family, and that I didn't appreciate it. He reminded me I had a few days to leave before he returned, and that I shouldn't worry about the kids because he would take care of them. Desperate, I turned to Laura. She listened as I poured out my fears, confusion, and shame. She told me honestly that Ken might never forgive me. Even if he did, he would probably bury himself in his work again. leaving me to deal with the same emptiness that led me to Michael in the first place. Laura suggested something drastic: selling the house, taking the boys, and leaving before Ken could take any further action. She told me I had suffered enough taking care of the kids and that no woman would do it for me. I needed to protect the kids from the fallout and create a fresh start where we wouldn't be haunted by my mistakes. I was too confused to know if it was the right decision, but I just wanted something to keep Ken close to me, to make him reconsider. However, the idea of taking the boys away from their father felt like another betrayal. Left alone with my thoughts, I saw the depth of the damage I had caused. Laura's words echoed in my mind, but I didn't know what to do. Ken, being smarter than I gave him credit for, found out about my plans before I could execute them. Whether through intuition or his meticulous nature, I don't know, but he uncovered my attempts to leave with the boys. I'll never forget the look on his face when he confronted me. It wasn't just anger, it was pain. Deep, raw pain. He told me I had no right to take the boys away, that they needed stability, not the chaos I was creating. He told me I had destroyed the trust in our family and was now trying to run from the consequences. Then, with a voice colder than I ever imagined possible, he told me to leave. He would handle the boys, the house, everything. He didn't want me there anymore. With nowhere else to go, I turned to my brother. His home was small and already crowded, but he welcomed me nonetheless. It wasn't a place I could stay for long. The thought of going back to my father's house crossed my mind, but his wife, my stepmother, had always made it clear I wasn't welcome. Her hatred toward me had never been hidden, and I knew she would make my life unbearable if I showed up there. I didn't know what to do anymore. I needed a way out. Any advice on how to go about this would be appreciated. Update. Hello Reddit. I'm here again, and things have only gotten worse. I regret every second of that joke. The trust in the family, we had ruined it in an instant, all for a careless comment. The guilt has hit me harder than anything I've ever felt, and each time I think about it, I start crying uncontrollably. I couldn't believe how badly I hurt him and how thoughtless I was. I shouldn't have said what I did. Now everything I do feels futile. I couldn't get Michael back into my life. He filed for divorce, saying that if he let it slide, who knows what would happen next time. He was right. I was selfish, and that's not how a mother should act. When the divorce papers were served, it felt like the ground slipped from beneath me. I never imagined it would come to this, but I guess I should have known better. I pushed him too far, said things I couldn't take back, and watched as everything I had built crumbled down. The divorce wasn't just about the end of our marriage. It was the end of a life I had gotten so comfortable with, a life that included our children. The custody battle was brutal. Ken was determined, and I saw how much he wanted the boys with him. I tried to fight for them, to prove I could be the mother they needed, but it wasn't enough. His lawyer tore apart every mistake I had made, and in the end, the judge granted him full custody, leaving me with only visiting rights. Now, every day feels empty. I can't hold my children in the mornings, can't kiss them goodnight, can't help them with their homework, or listen to their small victories and struggles. The only time I get to see them is during those brief visits. It feels both like a blessing and a torment fleeting. And then I'm back to being alone, missing them with a depth I never knew was possible. I watch other mothers with their children, laughing and enjoying the little things. And it hits me all over again. I failed them. And now, I have to live with the consequences. I never thought I'd be this person, the one who only gets to see her children in brief visits. It hurts in a way I can't explain. And no matter how many times I tell myself I deserve this, the pain never quite goes away. But I have to move on. I can't keep drowning in regret and mistakes. I've got to rebuild for myself. I have to face this head on and find a way to make my life meaningful again, even if it's without the family I thought I'd always have. Maybe, just maybe, if Ken sees how much I've changed, how hard I've worked to become better, he might reconsider. But for now, I have to focus on myself and work on building a future. Thank you to everyone who has read this far. I'm starting over, and that's all I can do.